Hello, this is Dr. Selena Phillips, and this is the second video in a series on nutrient requirements for livestock. In this video, we're going to be specifically addressing maintenance requirements, understanding what maintenance is and how that plays a role in developing rations for livestock. When we consider maintenance, we kind of define it as the quantity of nutrients needed to maintain normal body function. And when we talk about normal body function, we're talking about all the functions that are vital for life. Things like breathing, heart rate, transporting ions across cell membranes, digestion, absorption, and metabolism. We are not talking about any additional physical activity, and maintaining a constant body temperature. So literally, I call this like the couch potato of the animal world. They're not doing much, they're just existing. And when we think about maintenance and feeding livestock, animals are always going to put the nutrients they consume first and foremost to maintenance. And if we want to do anything beyond maintenance, we have to ensure the maintenance needs are met. Otherwise, we will not be able to achieve any of our production goals. So, when we're developing rations, we always first and foremost consider what is maintenance, and then we are going to add above that to be able to achieve a desired level of production. And so when we talk about production, that's going to be defined different ways depending on the species we're dealing with. It could be growth, like a growing lamb, a growing steer, a puppy, a kitten, whatever we're working with. Gestation or pregnancy. Are they producing milk, eggs, meat, wool production, or other fiber production? Are they working or doing exercise? On this example, think about horses that could be doing ranch work. They could be a performance horse like a racehorse or something. What are they being asked to do? All of these that are beyond maintenance would fall into that production category. And it's important to remember that all animals have a maintenance requirement. This is not unique to any certain kind of animal. And as a feeder, if we want to be efficient and we want to achieve efficiency, we need to do that when maintenance is a lower proportion of the total requirement. So the more productive the animal, the lower the maintenance cost. So we want to try to avoid situations where we have low production and a high maintenance cost. And we want to try to shift animals and shift nutrients to be low cost on maintenance and higher production. So when we talk about an animal at maintenance, and you hear that term a lot in the nutrition field, they're not growing, they're not pregnant, they're not producing milk, they're not doing any exercise above and beyond what they do to exist. So when we're feeding for maintenance, we're looking for a zero balance. We want to maintain health and a consistent body weight or body condition. And the term body condition refers to fat cover. And so that's what we're looking for. We are not pushing them to gain or lose weight. We just want them to maintain their health and well-being. If you haven't noticed, even when people go to the grocery store right now in 2024, food's expensive. It's expensive for livestock too. Feed is the number one cost for producers, accounting for upwards of 50-60%, probably closer to 60-70% of total production costs. It's expensive. So we want to make sure that we're as efficient as possible. More nutrients go into production, less to maintenance. We want to get through that, meet those maintenance needs as efficiently as we can. And one of the main needs affected by maintenance is energy. And so we're going to spend a few minutes and talk about how animals lose energy. The first term we're going to discuss is the term gross energy, right here. Gross energy is referring to if I put a flake of hay in front of an animal, whatever calories are in that hay, that is the gross energy. It's just calories available to the animal. Now, once that animal consumes the hay, a lot of things can happen. For example, not all of that hay is going to be used by the animal. Some of it is going to come out in the feces. That feces contains undigested feed. For our example, hay. That undigested feed has calories in it. So if we were to measure how many calories were in the feed versus how many went into the animal, we would be able to subtract and calculate what's called digestible energy, also known by the acronym DE. This is the measure of energy that's common in the equine industry. They use number of calories of digestible energy per day or per pound of dry matter for their So digestible energy is used for the equine industry. That's the measure of energy that equine nutritionists use. And so if you see DE, that is referring to digestible energy. Now, animals can also lose feed or lose calories through urine and gas production. And for example, they can also, like, a lot of nitrogen gets expelled from the body through the urine, as well as some calories with that. Gas production like CO2, methane, all of those contain carbons that are being wasted and excreted back into the system. They're not being used by the animal for energy. And so what we wind up with when we measure the amount of calories coming off in urine and gas, we wind up with what's called metabolizable energy, or ME. It's hard for me to write. Metabolizable energy is what's commonly used in the swine industry, poultry industry, dogs and cats, the companion animals. This is what they're going to be utilizing as a measure of energy. When you look up the requirements for a dog, or you look on the back of, or look on a feed tag for a dog, you're going to see metabolizable energy. The final method or way that animals can lose energy is through heat production. And in the ruminants, like cattle, sheep, and goats, the ruminal fermentation process produces a tremendous amount of heat. And as a result, this is a major factor in wasted calories. And so as a nutritionist, for ruminant nutritionists, we use the net energy system, or NE. You've seen already in my feeds class, those that are in that net energy can be divided into production traits such as gain, lactation, or maintenance. And so we need to account for that net energy. And so different species will utilize different measures of energy. Horses will use digestible energy. Swine and poultry and the companion animals, most of the monogastrics, will utilize metabolizable energy as their measure of energy. Ruminant species use the net energy system. As we start diving into maintenance, it's important to know a few terms. What is basal metabolism? And basal metabolism is literally a baseline. It's the amount of energy that's used for maintenance, or sometimes called a fasting metabolism. And what it's about is the relationship between the surface area of the animal and its body weight. That relationship has a direct impact on metabolic rates. So what happens is when the animal's surface area in general is where heat is lost to the environment. So when you think about it, small animals have, when you compare their surface area to their body weight, a small animal like a rat is going to have a very high metabolic rate because they have a relatively large surface area that they expel heat. And so they've got to work harder to maintain their body temperature. So that results in a higher metabolic rate. As animals get larger, we start seeing that relative to their body weight, their surface area is a little bit smaller. And so one of the things we do to estimate metabolic rate is we try to predict the animal's surface area. And through research over decades, approaching a century now, that the 30s, we've developed a way to estimate the surface area to get us pretty dang close. And that's that term metabolic body weight. And it's expressed as body weight to the 0.75 power. It's important to remember that this is in kilograms, so when you see equations relating to this, it's always going to be in kilograms. So what does this really mean? So if we look at different species of animals, a cow, pig, human, sheep, poultry, or even a rat, we see a high variation in body weight in kilograms. And when you actually take a look at how much energy is expended per kilogram of body weight, we see a wide variation. So when we put that to the metabolic body weight, like in this column, what we see is the standardizing of the relationship between surface area and body weight. That's going to allow us to better compare animals, estimate needs for animals, get a more accurate prediction of that true relationship between surface area and body weight. Each species has their own equations to estimate maintenance energy requirements. So I want to make a note, for my class, you will never have to memorize these equations. I will always give you these equations because myself as a nutritionist, I look them up. I have the beef cattle and the sheep one memorized because I deal with those a lot. But other than that, you don't have to memorize the equations, but understanding how they work. I want you to also pay attention that in the ruminants, you'll see we have net energy for maintenance as the expression of energy. And if they're big ruminants, it's going to be in megacalories per day. If they're little ruminants like sheep or goats, they're in kcals per day. When we get into the swine, we now see that I gotta change color. We see that metabolizable energy as the measure of energy. When we get into the equine, we're back to seeing digestible energy as the measure of energy. And so each species has their own. When we're asked to calculate maintenance energy requirements, you just plug in the body weight of the animal into these equations. Let's work through an example. I'm going to awkwardly write on this screen, but let's take a beef animal, for example, say a 600-pound steer. Okay, the first step is to convert pounds to kilograms. And so we need to know that kilograms, 1 kilogram is 2.205 pounds. And so to do that, we simply divide 600 divided by 2.205. And that's going to give us our pounds. It should be like 270 something, but I can't remember off the top of my head, so I'm busting out a calculator super fast. 600 divided by 2.205 gives us 272 pounds. Kilograms. Always make sure you track your units when you're working in animal nutrition. And make sure that you're labeled and you know exactly where you're at. So now we can plug that number right here into the body weight factor. And if we take that 272 to the 0.75, we get a metabolic body weight of basically 67 kilograms if you round up. So now we know that this whole variable, so what is 0.077 times 67 kilograms? That steer requires 5.16 megacalories of net energy for maintenance per day just to meet their maintenance need. So now we're assuming that that steer would need to gain weight or be productive in some way. So we would need to go above and beyond that to achieve a productive goal. This is just for maintenance. But that works if you stick to the 3 steps. Step 1, convert the weight from pounds to kilograms. Step 2, find the metabolic body weight by putting the weight in kilograms to the 0.75 power. Then drop that metabolic body weight into the equation. I do need to make a note. If you look at the horse equations, there's 2 separate equations, one for horses under 600 kilograms, like ponies and light horses, and one for horses over 600 kilograms, which might be considered the warm bloods, the draft horses, some of those. But they do not use metabolic body weight. The equine nutrition field uses body weight in kilograms, not metabolic body weight. It's about the only one that I know of that does not use metabolic body weight. Other nutrients, such as protein, vitamins, and minerals, are very important for maintenance of the animal system. However, as nutritionists, if the energy needs are met, most everything else gets met. Rarely do we need to consider adding in something else. That concludes the second video on maintenance. Next video in the series is going to briefly talk about the impact of climate on maintenance energy requirements and the animal's nutrient needs. Thank you.